would love to connect this to the aspect of the whole person coaching that you mentioned in the past, and like, we've spoken about it as well. What does that mean? How does all of it fit in to each other? If you could just explain that to me, please.
Yeah. When you think of yourself as a whole person, what would that include?
I mean, on surface, I know the answer. Like, I know the answer would include, um I think, like, that's what, right? I know the meaning of it. I think embodying the meaning of it is very challenging. So it would probably, I use the word probably, but it needs to include aspects that I don't like about myself, aspects that are my shadows, aspects that are my brighter, lighter self, the aspects that the world sees challenging in me, um, things that probably I have not made peace with myself with. And how can I be okay with that aspect of me as well, right? Um, I think it would mean to look at myself as how I would look at a tree, or like how I look at nature. We don't say, "Oh, I wish this leaf was a bit more greener," or "I wish it was a bit taller," or anything of that sort, right? We just look at it and we're like, "Oh, wow, it's a tree." You don't even go, "Oh, wow," half the time. You just go, "It's a tree," right? I know I need to look at myself like that when I say I'm a whole person. But like I said, embodying that thought is very challenging for me.
Yeah, I love this metaphor of a tree that you've just described, and we'll work with that a little bit. Because if we think about a tree, right, there's what we see, right? Like there's like we can see, sometimes we can't even see the whole of a tree, depending. Like if you go to certain parts of the world and you have old growth trees, like they are so tall, and maybe there's so many other trees around them too that like we can only catch certain glimpses of them. And a tree has like, and I'm by no means going to do, I'm not a biologist, so, but it has a trunk, it has branches, it has leaves. Sometimes it flowers, sometimes it loses the leaves, sometimes the leaves are green. In Canada, the leaves will, I don't know if it does this in India, but like in Canada, the leaves will turn different colors on based on the seasons. Here, I'm in Nicaragua. They do as well when it's dry season. Like you see a different color of the leaves than you do, or they'll burst into flower because they're under stress. So my point being here is that there's also a very changing quality to the trees, right? A tree one day is going to be very different from a tree the other day. A tree on a windy day is going to be different from a tree on a still day. A tree on a rainy day, right? The water is going to glisten off of it, and we're going to see a lot reflected off of it that we than we would if it was than it was dry. And then there's also roots of the tree. So there's some things that are beneath the surface that we can't possibly see. Um, and like you said, like the leaves, like you can focus in on one leaf and it'll have a unique quality to it that's very different from the other leaves. So when we think of ourselves, there's so much there that others don't see of us. And there's so much there that even we don't see of ourselves. And at any given moment, it's only representing a snapshot of what's there. And in the next moment, that can all change, right? We're impacted by our environment. We're impacted by our um, trajectory in the world. Like, for in other words, like an oak tree can't become an elm tree. It just can't. It's an oak tree, right? So it can sit there and think, I wish I was an elm tree. I wish I was an elm tree, but it's not. It's an oak tree. And so when we think of ourselves as whole people, um, it's like you said, like we have shadow selves, we have aspirational selves, we have emotional selves, we have physical selves, we have the selves that we've believed we need to be, right? Which are the belief systems that we have. We have the selves that we want to be, that we feel like we need to be at a heart level, and that's the values that we have. Um, so there's so much there when we look at the whole person. It's our thoughts, it's our feelings, it's our way of being in the world. It's our value systems, it's our culture, right? Like a tree's going to do very differently if it's on its own versus when it's in a forest, right? So when we coach the whole person, we recognize that there's a lot more to them, A, than what is being presented to us in the moment, and that we can see either through our screen or, if we're sitting with them having a conversation. And B, definitely way more than the situation that the client's brought in. And because we as humans tend to be problem solvers, we as coaches can get hyper fixated on the problem that the client's brought in, right? On the situation that the client's brought in. And forget about the person that's dealing with that. And so coaching the whole person is being curious about and open to and caring for the being that has come into the coaching session, and recognizing that being is shaped by so many things that we will never be aware of, and neither are they, which can keep us in a spot of perpetually not knowing, which is the biggest gift of coaching, because we can use that awareness that we will never know to explore things that will help open up the session to more than what the client walked in with.
I don't know what to say, but that's just beautiful. Being able to offer a space that even the client had no idea existed for them. And to a certain extent, even the coach isn't aware of, right? Like in terms of offering, it's a space that is a possibility of so much more. And I think that can only be possible when the coach trusts themselves, trusts the client, and trusts the process itself, right? And it's taking me back to the meditation aspect about how meditation helps with all of that, how meditation helps create all of that, the trust aspect of everything.
And what answer is coming up for you around that or question?
For me right now, I think um I love the the essence. I've always loved the essence of whole person, I think, as a person. Um I'm also wondering how um because I have seen that with myself, right? Like there are different aspects of me that show up in different spaces, and um there's a self that you need to be because the situation requires you to be that way. uh there is this there's a different aspect of me that shows up when, say, I'm drawing or coloring, right? Like the more childlike aspect of me. Um, and all of them are still part of me, right? Um, I'm wondering how coaching can help piece those aspects together. Um, as someone who's probably undergoing training, or as someone who is coming to a coach for a session, um, how does coaching help with bringing me back to my whole self? Is what I'm sitting with right now.
Mhm. I think it comes back to unconditional positive regard because when a client begins to feel, when you begin to feel like you have the safety to be able to see those aspects of yourself that you talked about, and even the ones that feel less comfortable, right? Like the shadow side of ourselves, right? When we can meet them without judgment, which a coach will do with their unconditional positive regard, and start to realize all the different players within us, let's say, for lack of a better word, right? We start seeing them and we start granting them the right to their existence because we accept them for what they are. Then we can start factoring in, okay, what needs to happen now for me to be able to move towards what I want? What do I need to choose? Who do I need to choose to be? What do I need to maybe release that's no longer serving me? All of it being done from this space of acceptance. And remembering that that's the beauty of coaching because everything that we're talking about, it's similar to therapy, right? But the difference with coaching is that there's always a goal, there's always a purpose behind this, which is I which is fueled by a deep motivation for the client to do something that's meaningful and purposeful for them for their growth, right? It's all around maximizing our potential. It's all around growth. And so when we're able to then identify not just like the goal out there, right? But the purpose that, or sorry, the person that's holding that vision so dear to them, right? The purpose that's the person that's feeling motivated towards that, then we can align all those parts of us, all those aspects of ourselves to move towards that. And I was that a little bit, I realized that that might have been a little vague. But imagine if we were thinking about it in terms of like we have a team, right? Like we have a team that's moving towards something that needs to do a, a, a sports team. I don't know a lot about sports, right? We need to know all their players and we need to know all of the players' strengths and we also need to know all of their blind spots in order to then be able to get the team working together towards their goal, which is, probably winning the game or at least playing better. So when we think of that in terms of who we are as people, we are a team. We have a whole bunch of different, aspects, strengths, challenges, beliefs, values, all of these things. We need to know them and then we need to align them towards where we want to go as opposed to being in conflict with each other.
That's like, I really resonated with that idea because even when you're working even say a team at the end of the day has to work as one entity, as one unit to be able to, say, win a certain tournament or win something, right? And there has to be, uh, I what's the word? Hmm, synchronicity of sorts that come that needs to come in for them to be able to act a certain way. So it's about being uh, able to do that for our clients in coaching. It's about first finding that for ourselves and then being able to gift that space to a client where they can find their own synchronicity, where they can find their oneness, see what their strengths and weaknesses are, what players do they want to play up, and what players do they want to probably, make them sit at the table or whatever the equivalent of that would be.
Yeah, and, like, thinking about that, if we think of, like, those cheesy sports movies, right? Like, even those players that are sitting out sometimes need to come in at specific
Yeah.
moments, and it's the coach that recognizes it. It's the coach that's able to sort of observe that team from a more neutral perspective, um, ideally, and so that's what we're offering as coaches as well. It's like we're there as the observers, but we're also sharing what we see. And then it's the client that puts it together and decides how they need to align everything so that it works together well.
When you use the word coach, my immediately my mind started jumping and I was like, no, we have to talk about this. And I will bring that up because the thought that came to my mind is, as someone who learns to self coach, uh, one does that for themselves, right? Like you become your own coach and you do that for your own team. And how does that work? All of it.
Well, that's a great question because essentially w- when we're embodying a coaching mindset and we are coaches in a coaching session, we're facilitating a space for the client to self coach. We really are. We don't, it's, um, yes, we're involved because we're sharing things that we see and all of those things that are we're less able to do sometimes when we're self-coaching ourselves. But the coach acts kind of like as a mirror, and yeah, the coach also sometimes is curious and asks some open-ended kind of challenging questions, right? And it's through the challenge, right? Sometimes like the coach inviting the client, what if we looked at it from a different perspective? What would you see then? Or what would happen if that wasn't true? What could be possible, right? Those are challenges very respectfully put out to the client. And that's what can help the client have that what we call as the essence of coaching is being thought provoking, right? It provokes new thoughts. Well, when we're coaching ourselves, we first thing I'm going to say is we need to challenge ourselves. And it's coming back to being open to uncertainty, being open to discomfort. That's one of the first ways that we would begin to do that because it's the not knowing that's so powerful in coaching. So when we self coach, we want to, um, and I can bring it back to meditation, right? Like observe our thoughts, observe our feelings, notice what's happening in our bodies, all of those things. We can journal. That's another option. Um, But the key of it is not to try this is what I fell into for the longest time in self-coaching, and I still do that. There's a solution orientation. I want to solve this. I want to fix this, right? That's very different from I want to get to know myself a little bit better. I want to be able to recognize what's happening within me in this moment. I want to be accepting of it. I want to be loving with myself. And I also want to challenge my thoughts, my beliefs, my feelings, in a loving and respectful way. So self-coaching, like is for me, let's say if I'm having a specific idea of what should be, right? Like coming back to what you said, um, around, and you didn't say this, I put those words in your mouth, but the idea of like we shouldn't be distracted in meditation. So let's use that as an example. Self coaching yourself when you notice something like that comes up as a shouldn't. Well, why shouldn't we? Right? What is it? What if we should? Or what makes that a should? Or what if that wasn't true? What could be possible then? So we start questioning our beliefs. And then every question we can go deeper and deeper and deeper. And the beauty of it is that we'll never find an answer, and that's okay.
And I think that's where the sitting with the discomfort aspect helps, right? Because I think humans are so wired to finding answers, to finding solutions, to know, to have something. We don't like open ends. We don't like movies that end abruptly. Books with last pages gone. We need to have a definite ending to things. So, uh, yeah, I think the meditation helps with the discomfort of not knowing things, and self coaching helps us to kind of find ourselves through that discomfort. Um, yeah, Eh, that's amazing. Um, so I do have another question before uh, we we probably, if I can request you, and if we have the time, we can do something together. But how has your understanding and definition of meditation changed from when you knew it before you started doing it, uh, to say the first couple of years of knowing and doing it to now, after having practiced it for so many years?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it has me thinking that it's constantly shifting and changing, actually. And there's people that will say stick with one practice, like choose something and don't shift off it. And maybe that's okay for some people, but for me, I like the shifting qualities of what I practice. In the beginning, I started with mantra meditation. That's what I learned. So there was a mantra that we always came back to. Um, and then I moved away from that and I was using the out breath for a little while. So, like noticing the breath, but noticing more like the out breath, right? And feeling like the breath at the tip of the nostrils. Um, and having like a little bit more of an emphasis on the out breath, which by the way can help when we need to calm our nervous systems down. Having an extended out breath will naturally activate our parasympathetic nervous system. So I was working with that for a while. I was doing loving kindness meditations. I still do on days that I need that. So that's all around opening up the heart. We start by thinking about somebody that we love, that's very close to us, that's very easy to love. Sometimes the most easy to love is an animal. um, and then we come to ourselves. That opens up our heart. Then we come to ourselves. Then we come to those that we're closer to. Then we come to those that are neutral to us. And then um, people that we're in conflict with in the whole world. So that can be a really beautiful practice. And I went to a Vipassana retreat. And so there it was around body scans. So then I got really into that for a while. So you kind of start from the top of your head down to your toes, and you go back into the top of your head, and you keep kind of moving through that process. Currently, I am incorporating a lot of those aspects into my meditation. So sometimes, like if I do need to, let's say, regulate my nervous system, I will be on my breath. I will do an extended out breath. But I also do visualizations. I've been working with the elements a lot. So noticing the qualities of air, fire, water, earth. That's been really powerful for me. And yeah, it's just like I said, some days bring different things. I've also done manifestation meditation. So that's like, and that sounds really, I realize a little woo. But when I say manifestation meditations, I mean like when I find myself very worried about something, I visualize it going well. So, like, if I'm traveling and I'm stressed about like all of the things that could go wrong, I imagine myself arriving at the airport and things going really smoothly and like I get my bags and so that type of thing. Is it very loud in my background here? Okay, good. Um, and I can't remember, I think you said, yeah, so it's evolved to being very diverse in practice. And because every day is different from for me, my meditation will bring something different, but I do try to sort of stay with one practice for a period of time until it evolves into something else. So in other words, like I'm not typically going like mantra, breath, this, that, the other thing, switching it every day. I tend to like develop a practice and evolve it, and then something else will come into it as I'm doing that.
That's amazing. And that, I think that's a huge tip for anyone as well who's probably going to listen to us, that you don't need to stick to one practice. It's okay to change things up. It's okay to switch things up and spice it up in your meditation as well. And it's just about being curious about what uh, the practice is bringing to you during a certain period of time, right?
Yeah. One of my like struggles with religion that I've had is the dogmatism. And I really don't believe that. And I know this is my belief and I'm being dogmatic about it, maybe, but like, I don't believe that we should be dogmatic about how we meditate, because there isn't one right way. Um, and yeah, we're evolving as humans. So as we evolve, but on the other hand, it's always everything is a balance, right? Like we still want to be able to commit to something. So commit to a certain type of practice, but allow it to evolve. The same as you commit to a relationship, but that relationship needs to evolve.
I think it's the same with the commitment to self, right? You need to commit to yourself and see yourself grow, but you need to be open to the idea of um, and curious to the idea of how we evolve and who we are becoming.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautifully put.
So, is it okay if we do a quick closing meditation? Because I think now I want to start meditating with you.
Amazing. Yes, let's do that. We'll do something like maybe 10 minutes. Does that speak to you? And I won't be keeping track of time, so we'll see what ends up being. Well, one thing I'll invite us to do, and I'll explain this first, that can be really helpful before we settle into a meditation, is to take a look around our space. So to kind of let our nervous systems recognize the container that we're in, like the room that we're in. It just lets our bodies know that we're safe. So we can allow our eyes to wander off the screen, while also acknowledging each other that we're here and just taking a look around the room that you're in and just inviting the eyes to notice the nuances, like the colors and the textures of the room, the light and the shadow. And then coming back to center and either closing the eyes or finding a soft gaze. And if you choose to find a soft gaze, just inviting you to choose something that's not the screen and coming to the space of the breath, taking a nice deep inhale in through the nose, holding the breath in the belly for a moment, and then exhaling softly and slowly out the mouth, extending the exhale, longer than the inhale. And then another one like that, a nice deep breath in through the nose, holding the breath in the belly for the moment, and then exhaling softly and slowly out the mouth. And then inviting the breath to return to its natural rhythm, simply observing it for a moment. Noticing the air as it travels in and out of the nostrils. Noticing the rise and fall of the chest. And the rhythm of the heartbeat. And with the next breath in, inviting the chest to shine forward. And with the next breath out, inviting the shoulders to drop. Feeling the feet planted on the surface beneath you. Noticing the hands where they're placed. Inviting the crown of the head to tip up towards the sky. And from this sense of structure of the feet being on the ground and the spine being straight, inviting the belly to soften, being open here, knowing that you're supported by the earth and by you. And in this moment, notice what is happening. If there are thoughts, seeing if you can observe them rising and falling. And seeing what happens when you stay in observation of the thought rather than being the thought itself. Bringing the awareness to the heart space. Feeling the chest rise and fall. And the organ that beats to keep us alive. And noticing the elements of feeling here. And the heart, which connects us to life, to love, and which experiences also grief, and loss. And just being present to the feelings that arise. While staying in the heart space. Knowing that with every breath, with every heartbeat, with every moment, those feelings shift and change. When we're not just in the feeling itself. And expanding the awareness to take in the whole body here. And noticing the sensations of the body. A sense of sound. A sense of touch. And also the sensations within. A sense of pressure, maybe in one place, and ease in another. Heat, which may be somewhere. And coolness somewhere else. Tingling, maybe even a bit of pain. And numbness elsewhere, or absence of pain. And just taking in that we have this whole weather map of sensations that contrast each other and that shift and change. In any given moment. And staying with that. And getting ready to come out of the meditation. Reflecting on a question first. What is reality really? And just letting whatever answer arises to arise. Maybe it's even another question. Knowing that this is a space that you can return to at any time. And then just taking whatever movement feels like it wants to happen. Maybe that's a stretch, or it's placing the hands over the chest or over the eyes. Maybe asking the body what it needs here. And when and as you're ready, opening your eyes, and we'll join each other in this space that we share.